Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a Learning and Growing webinar, International Economics, Engaging Students with Real-World Group Projects. Our presenter today is Svitlana Maksymenko. My name is Joanna Graver, and I'm a member of our training and support team here at Hawks Learning. I'll be here in the background to help with questions as well. We will have a live Q&A session after the presentation, so please do enter any questions you may have into the Q&A box at the end, at the bottom of the Zoom screen as we go. And on that note, I will hand it over to our presenter.
Thank you, Joanna. First of all, I'm very thankful to Hawks Learning about this opportunity to talk about my teaching experience and to share this experience with all of you. So I will talk a little bit about myself and my motivation in creating and introducing the group, the country group study project in my international economics classes, and then of course I will go over the actual projects, share my experience, my challenges, successes with this project over the past several years. So I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Pittsburgh. Actually, our title has been changed during the spring faculty meeting, so now I'm a full professor of teaching of economics. So I joined Pitt in 2006 after 2 years teaching at Temple University in Philadelphia. So I had been teaching international economics since 2004. So it's a long journey for me. And of course, I went through multiple textbooks, through multiple course structures, through different objectives when teaching international economics. When finally, probably over the past 2 years, I think that I found some sort of a peace in my course design and in the activities that I use with my students in international economics courses. So my teaching portfolio includes not only international economics, but financial economics, economic of development, and time over time I also offer principles of microeconomic course in the large sections. So at Pitt, the international economics is offered as an introductory course, so for which students do have two requirements to complete: principles of microeconomics and principles of macroeconomics. International economics is considered to be still the lower level and the graduate course, so it's title Econ 500. Which blends on students' knowledge of principles of micro and macro. So every semester we offer at least 2 sections of international economics that attract about 70 students in each section. So I teach about 140 students in international economics. So the class attracts not economics or business majors, but all majors throughout the university. So I have students from engineering school, from a school of education. So economics belongs to the arts and sciences. So multiple majors from the School of Arts and Sciences are my students. This course also counts as a general education requirement course. So it's a pretty basic, pretty low algebra stake, I would say, course, where my main objectives are to attract students' interest to study of international trade and international finance. So for a very long period of time when I was offering this course, I was roughly dividing it in 2 sections, international trade and international finance. And classically, I would cover their series of international trade, ranging from classical international trade theory, Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Hexler-Ralin model of international trade. So I would talk about their impact of protectionist on trade. So we would consider models of tariffs, quota, non-tariff barriers. We will talk about regional agreements as part of international trade section. And as part of the finance section of this course, so we would use macroeconomic tools. We would study the balance of payments. We will talk about their exchange rates, the determination of exchange rate, interest rate parity, purchasing power parity, and so on. So by and large, the course in the past, at least, that I was offering was quite, I would say, theoretical, reminding or building on the principles of microeconomics and macroeconomics that students already had. So it was fun teaching this course, and again, I'm consider myself a doer. So the students would have discipline in my course. They would always work on weekly homework assignments, and of course, as part of the assessments, they would have, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 exams throughout the course that would put a little bit higher weight on their overall course grade. So until pandemic happens, right? And as part of this transition to online mode of instruction, I realized that having a quite large weight on weekly homework assignments and 2 or 3 exams as part of the course probably would not be very fair to students. Moreover, when reviewing my teaching evaluations, I noticed that a lot of students in the past were asking me to introduce a little bit more real-world experience, real-world application of international trade models and international finance models that we study as part of this course into the curriculum, right? So together with my coworker, Carrie Treader, who was also teaching this course, International Economics, for our department, we actually got this great idea, and I'm extremely thankful to Carrie for this opportunity and these discussions that we had in order to introduce some real-world exposure to our students as part of international economics course. So we were discussing, so how can we do it, right? So how can we engage our students, how we can expose them more to the real world examples? As part of the course being offered online, so during my lectures, I would break the lecture sometimes, would place students into the breakout rooms and ask them to discuss some issue together, and then we will bring it back into the classroom discussion. Or I would ask them to work on some problem, quiz together, and later on back into the classroom we will discuss the story, right? And at the same time, so when we were sort of designing these short in-class activities, we realized that it would be actually great to give students the opportunity to search the international trade and finance data, to become an expert in particular country, to have some real-world exposure with reviewing the largest trade partners of a country of their choice, monitoring their exchange rates, monitoring the price of Big Mac in different countries and comparing it with their price of Big Mac in the United States, and many other interesting issues. So as a result, essentially, of this idea to get a little bit more real exposure to our students, Carrie and I designed 3 projects that we offer throughout the term in our international economics classes. And so these 3 projects essentially ask students to create small study groups, so to create small working groups based on their interests, identify the country of their choice, And then throughout the semester, as we get more and more exposure to international trade models and international finance models, analyze these models in the content of the country of their choice, right? So that as soon as we get some exposure to particular international trade terminology, so we try to get students to apply this knowledge for the country, for the particular country that they have chosen as part of their teamwork. So first of all, I would like to share my syllabus just to give you some idea about why we decided to introduce these 3 projects. And so in a second, I will also show you their samples, the sample projects that students actually perform. All right, so just a second, I will share my screen with you guys, and we'll show the structure of my syllabus. So the course of international economics that I offered in the fall 2021 was roughly divided into 3 large blocks. So the first block was covering their international finance issues, and looking at the course calendar, you can see there topics that were included as part of this course. So balance of payments, foreign exchange markets, exchange rates, monetary standards, fixed versus floating exchange rates and policies, and a little bit of financial theory of interest rate parity and purchasing power parity. So throughout this huge section of international finance, students would have a weekly homework assignments, online homework assignments. And in the end of this block, right, so after students cover all the topic and have exposure to the structure of the balance of payments, when they understand what exchange rates are, the differences between fixed and floating exchange rate, interest rate parity, purchasing power parity, they are asked to complete their international finance country report, exploring all these issues for the country of their choice, right? So then our second section in the course is international trade section. So during this section, we cover, or so I usually cover the trade models, classical model, Heckscher-Lin model, empirical evidence of international trade models. And I also talk about the impact of protectionist policies on national welfare. So we cover models with no tariffs and small economy, tariffs in large country, non-tariff barriers, quota, export subsidies, and other types of non-tariff barriers, arguments for protection, and regional trade agreements. So again, similar to the first section, students complete, so as we proceed with the material, students complete their weekly homework assignments, and in the end of this section, they also submit their country report, exploring tariffs, non-tariff barriers, pattern of trade for the country of their choice. And finally, our last section in the course is the section on international issues. We call it issues and application. So this section specifically targets students who do not have very strong analytical skills, who maybe do not like the models and international theories too much, but at the same time would like to have some exposure to issues such as regional blocks, membership in the World Trade Organization, International Monetary Fund, United Nations Sustainable Goals, different issues of economic development, strategies of economic development, international factor movements of foreign direct investment, migration of labor, refugee policies, immigration policies, and so on. So as I said, broadly, we call this section as applications and issues, and similar to their prior 2 sections, students complete their weekly homework assignments on these topics, and in the very end of the course, submit their last country report on international issues. Okay, so this just to give you some ideas about their essentially structure and the idea behind their 3 group projects. So in my syllabus, group projects are marked in blue. Right. So what do we do with the students, right? So how do we assign their group projects? How we encourage students to select the country? So first of all, because I teach large sections of international economics, I have about 140 students every semester. So my policy usually is for students who know each other, who have some friends in the classroom, so I allow them to create their working country group on their own during the first 2 weeks of classes. So in the learning system. So our university uses Canvas as a learning platform. So it allows students voluntarily to sign up in country groups and select the country of their choice. Now, for students who do not know each other, for whom international economics is their, let's say, first class that they take during the semester, such as in a large section, so they closer to the end of the second week, I simply place those students who did not identify their interest about the country, who did not form the groups myself, and place them into their assigned group with my invisible hand, I would say, right? So as a result, usually I would have about 14 groups, 14 country groups in each section. So altogether about 28 different country groups. So throughout the semester, or throughout actually several semesters, we realized that probably the best strategy would be to give students an opportunity to select the country of their choice. So what I did is I created a sign-up sheet for students that allows them to see the list of countries that they can select as their group, and then essentially as part of the selection indicate their willingness to work or to study the particular country and apply all the theories that we cover in the course to a particular country. So here in the shared screen, you can see the list of countries that I finalized for for fall 2021. So out of 195 countries in the world, I limited the selection to 112 countries only. And my primary motivation in limiting the countries was that for some extremely small countries, information about their international trade statistic is quite limited. So some of these countries do not issue government bonds, or generally have very limited information about their currency, their trade statistic. So just to eliminate possible challenges for the students who cannot find data or would have difficulty comparing their trade statistic, I try to eliminate all these countries. Also, another quite interesting point that I would like to make. Originally, when I allowed students to select a particular country, I allowed them to use any country of the European Union, any member of the European Union. Eventually, I removed their members of the European Union out of the list, especially members of the Eurozone out of the list, simply because in such cases, let's say if I would have, I don't know, 10 groups who are selected members of the Eurozone, then their answers about their foreign exchange rates, about their fixed rates versus flexible rates questions as part of the group report would be simply identical. It would be everything about the euro. And also analysis of international trade for Eurozone members becomes more complicated simply because it's harder to trace some data and some trade flows. So as a result, the members of the EU are excluded here from the list, and in some smaller countries. So you can see here there are countries that my students selected in fall 2021. So the green marking is for one of my section, and then the blue marking is for another section. So, and as I said, altogether I had 28 groups who selected the countries of their choice, and then sort of followed their international finance issues, international trade issues for those countries. All right. All right, so now what are these projects about? So as I mentioned, the course itself is divided into 3 sections. So my first group project asks students to look at the international finance of the country of their choice, okay? So I would also like to share this international finance project with you, so at least you can get an idea what is it about. So each project has 5 questions, so 5 issues for students to explore. And as I mentioned, each group of students also has 5 members. So based on my experience, some groups divide these questions among their members. Other groups just work together on each question, coordinate their answers, and then prepare as a final report. So the questions that I include in their international finance country report ask students to download the balance of payments of the country of their choice, and then shortly describe their trends, the structure of this balance of payments. So the students actually look at the current account on trade and merchandise services, income transfer. They talk about the size of a capital account and financial account. They look at the international reserve of the country and give a short overview of changes in the balance of payments for a country of their choice over the past 3 years. So they can get an idea about the volume of trade, about the volume of investment in the country, the country's reserve, and generally judge about the trade position of the country globally. So question number 2 asks students to report their exchange rate of the country over the past 5 years on the monthly scale. Also, based on this exploration, students make a decision whether this comment whether their exchange rate of the country of their choice is fixed or flexible. So they also are encouraged to visit the national central bank website of the country of their choice, and judge about their foreign exchange rate regime, motivation for such regime. They discuss pros and cons of this regime for the country of their choice. Question number 3 in the finance section looks at their, essentially this is a question about the interest rate parity. It asks students to find information about their interest rates that their country obtains through issue of its bond, compare with their United States bond yields, identifies the difference, and then judge whether the interest rate parity holds for the country of their choice. And finally, the last two questions within the International Finance Report ask students to explore the Big Mac Index and judge about the purchasing power parity of the country. So it's one of the probably most exciting tasks that students told me they perform as part of the International Finance course. So they look, they search for information about the price of Big Mac in local currencies. They use exchange rate to convert it into the US dollars, and of course do all the comparison and write, I don't know, a few paragraphs whether the exchange rate is overvalued and undervalued. And finally, the last task asks them to find the inflation in the country, compare it with the inflation in the United States, look at the difference, and then talk about the observed percentage changes in the exchange rates. So as you can see here, the task of the group project in the international finance section follow quite closely the material that I cover during every lecture in my international finance section, right? Now, the topics and motivation for their international trade group report. After or as we go with the international trade series, classical model of international trade, absolute advantage, comparative advantage, Heckscher-Lin model, Leontief paradox, no trade flows, and so on. So my students work on similar real-world issues following the country of their choice. Right? So here is a shared screen for my international trade group project. So it's a group project number 2 as part of my course. So this particular project allows students to dive into the international trade data. So students visit sites of their International Labor Organization and find data about the labor force of the particular country, labor productivity, average wages in the country reported in local currency and US dollars. They also visit their data bank of the World Bank in order to trace their exports, their exporting and importing industries, the largest exporting and importing industry of the country of their choice. So judge whether this trade is based on their principles of comparative advantages or resource availability in the country. They also visit the International Trade Statistic website of Comtrade, United Nations database. So they reported top 10 exporting industries of their country, top 10 importing industries. They look at the data, they briefly describe the reason why they believe the country is their net exporter or net importer of a particular product or service. They also are asked to look at the intra-industry trade index, so the concept that we cover as part of this course for a particular country, and then describe their opinion or talk about their opinion whether the trade of this country is based on principles of comparative advantage or imperfect competition and it is driven by, some other reasons beyond comparative advantage. We also talk about the protection. So students are asked to look at the tariff schedule of the country of their choice, reported industries with their highest tariff rates, with the highest quotas, and also report about the regional trade agreements. And finally, the very last group project that I would like to share with you is the group project number 3. So it covers different types of international trade issues. So what I do differently about this last trade project is that in addition, so instead of writing a particular report, I allow students to make a short PowerPoint presentation and present the result of their exploration of country of their choice international issues to the rest of the class. It's not required, but almost every year I have multiple teams that are interested in presenting their information about their country, international economic issues to their peers. So usually as part of this last report, students are asked to find out information about the membership of their country in international organization, preferential trade arrangements. They identify the economic development strategy of their country. They offer some opinion why the country is classified within the certain income group and what development strategy it uses to improve its macroeconomic condition and stability. So they also search information about multinational corporations present in the country. They report some immigration policies, so main points of the immigration policies and refugee policies and capital movement. So foreign direct investment, inward and outward flows. So this essentially is the types of slides or types of short reports that students prepare, no more than 12 slides for their last real world group project. Okay, so finally, the last question probably you would ask. So what is the overall impact of this group project? So students love it. So if you would look at my teaching evaluations and comments that I get in the end of the year, so it's a lot of very excited, very praising words about the fact that students got together closer. They found very, very good friends, and they become actually international trade and finance experts in the particular country. So some students report that actually after working on this project, they even have incentives to visit this country, or they shared some of these reports when they were interviewing in DC for internships or for jobs. So students believe that it's a great opportunity for them to become experts in international trade and international finance, and just not to, to remember better the concepts, the theories that we study as part of this course. So again, on this outcome, and I would like just to wrap up my presentation and leave some room for questions, comments, is there any?
All right, well, we don't have any questions in the Q&A at the moment, but we are a little over on our time, so we are going to go ahead and need to wrap up. Anything else you wanted to add? All right, well then we do appreciate all of the valuable information that you shared with us today, Svitlana, and thank you to everyone who did join us and attended today. If you or any of your fellow instructors are interested in presenting in our Learning and Growing webinar series, please submit your proposals to the Learning and Growing website, which I am linking in the chat right now. And then we do have one comment as well, a thank you in the Q&A section. So it sounds like another instructor does something similar to you. But I do want to let everyone know that we are going to be emailing everyone a link to the recording of this webinar once it is available. But I hope you all enjoyed today's session and hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you again, Professor Max.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.